Hello friends, how are you doing? I hope you're having good times. Welcome back to this channel. If you are new here, my name is Chris, aka the IT guy. So in today's video, we're going to see on how to make a login system by using AJAX and PHP, as well as MYSQL and PDO. So before we do anything, I'm going to demonstrate on what we are going to do. As you are seeing in here, I have this login form with just simple fields for the emails and for the password. And for this, when I try to put in my email that is registered in my database and I put the appropriate password, I will be able to log in. And when I put some password that is not appropriate, to give me some other error. Before I continue, I have to show you that I have this one user in my my database. I have this one user which has this email as demo@gmail.com, and this password is hashed in SHA-256. And I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to try to put in my appropriate password. And when I press on login, to load and to have to log in like this one, and you can see that I'm having this as my welcome page, and I can be able to log out. Okay, so for this case, when I try to input, for example, let me put email as this, and I input some of the gibberish password, and once I click on login, to give me this error that I'm having invalid credentials. So you have to check my username or password to try again. Okay, and whenever I try again with the appropriate email, I can be able to log in again. Okay, so I'm going to recreate this, then open my code editor. This is these are my previous codes that I used to do that, but I'm going to show this step by step so as to be able to explain on what's going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a new file, and I'm going to call this as login, or I'm going to call this, let me say what can I call this one? Okay, let me call this login. I already have the, okay, let me call this as file.html. okay, because I'm running out of the ideas for the name. Okay, so for this, as I'm having Emmet, I'm going to go ahead and press on exclamation mark and press enter. And for that case, I will be having this boilerplate, and you can start by writing our HTML documents starting from this boilerplate. So we start with the title, and I'm going to call this login system with AJAX and PHP. Okay, and I'm going to keep it simple. I don't want to do some complex stuffs. And as we'll be using some of the bootstrap classes to get this nice looking interface, I'm going to search for the bootstrap CDN. I'm going to go ahead and type bootstrap CDN so as to get the assets from the bootstrap. So I'm going to go ahead and try to copy the CDN for the bootstrap, so to be able to use its classes for our interface. So I'm going to click on copy for the CSS only, and I'm going to go ahead in my heading tag, and I'm going to paste it in here. And as we need some of the JavaScript, I'm going to go ahead here down here before the ends, and I'm going to go ahead and copy the JavaScript, and I'm going to copy it by using this link too. It's now copied. I'm going to go ahead and paste it. Okay, so now we are ready to start our document. So I'm going to go faster so as to be able to avoid this video to be so huge. So for this case, I'm going to create a div, and for this div we will be having a class of container, and inside the div we start to put in our assets that we need. So I'm going to make another div, and I'm going to give it as a class of text center, like this one, so as to be having a text that will show us what we're going to do. For example, I'm going to call this, okay, let me say I'm going to say login with AJAX. I'm going to call h4, and I'm going to call this login with AJAX and PHP. Okay, let me make it simple like this one. Okay, and for that case, I can go ahead and see on how it look like on my browser. So I'm going to open my browser. I'm going to put in a new tab, or I can use this one. And for this case, I'm going to go to file.html. I named it to HTML to be able to mess up with the bootstrap classes, and I would name it to PHP afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and insert some of the margin. You can see that it is stuck on the top, so I'm going to go on here on this class, and I'm going to add a bit of space by using this class of M3. And when I click on refresh, you can see that now it is clear and concise. Okay, so to continue with the form, I'm going to create another div, and the div that I'm going to create is the div for the I'm going to give this as a class of low. For this case, if you are familiar with Bootstrap, you know what this means. And after that, I'm going to create a new div, and I'm going to give it a class of core md, and let me put, for example, let me put 6. Okay, and after doing that, I can go ahead and proceed with the form inside this, and I'm going to go ahead and start to do the form. So to start with the form, I will use the form tag, and I'm going to input the action. I'm going to leave it as empty, and I'm going to put the method, because the one that we need the most in here. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter, and in here, this is where we're going to insert our code for the form. Okay, and for that case, to make a form, we need to use the labels and for the input types. And as we are having two things in here, it is going to be a piece of cake. So I'm going to go ahead and say label, and it will be label for email, and I'm going to call this email. And to make this a bit of big, I'm going to put h5, and I'm going to call this email label. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and press enter. I'm going to put the input type, and it will be email for that case. And for the class, it will be form control. This is the Bootstrap class, form control, like this one. Okay, and I'm going to give it a name as email, and this name will be used for the PHP processor, and the ID will be equal to email, and this ID will be used by JavaScript. Okay, and we can go and see how it look like on our page. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh. Consider it was looking like this one. I'm going to try to bring this into the center. So to do that, I'm going to go to this div, and I'm going to add a bit of CSS class to add the margin as auto. So I'm going to say style equal to margin, and it will be auto. Okay, and in this case, when I refresh, because that was now in the center, and you can see it more clearly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make the second label, but as I'm a lazy programmer, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste. And after that, I'm going to change a bit of this. I'm going to put it as a password, and I'm going to say password again. Okay, and with the capital P. Okay, and for input type, it is now the password. The crust will be the same, the name will be the password, and for the ID it will be the password. All right, so after that, we are going now to insert the submit button. But before I do that, we have to refresh to make sure that it's coming the way we need. And in this case, okay, it's good. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my code editor again, and I'm going to input the submit button. So to do that, I'm going to leave a bit of space, and I'm going to, let me say, I'm going to press enter, add a break line, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to say like input type, it will be equal to a button, and I'm going to name it as a login, and I'm going to give it the ID of login. Okay, and after that, I'm going to give it a Bootstrap class of btn primary to make it blue. You can name it however you need, it depends on your choice. And after that, I'm going to give it the value outside of the class, of course, value equal to login. Okay, and after that, I'm going to go ahead and close it like this one. Okay, now we are okay. So for this case, when I go back and refresh, you can see that I'm having this login button and it does nothing because it's not optimized to work this time. So we're going to go ahead and make it work. All right. So exciting, isn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and for some cases you will need to have a loader when we are logging in, so as to inform that the user that the processes are still going. To make this quick, I'm going to copy this from here. I'm having a loader here. It is a span class from Bootstrap. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in our file here. And when I paste it and refresh, it will be looking like this one. It will be looking like this one forever until we do something. And don't worry, we are going to do that thing in a moment. Okay. And for that case, we need also to include the alert, as long as you will be inputting the wrong passwords or the wrong credentials. And for that, it will be also included in here. So I'm going to make a break line, and for that alert, I also have the codes for the alert, and they are here. I think they are from here to here. So I'm going to copy these and paste it in here. So to make this simple. And once I go ahead and refresh, you see that I'm having this and it is stuck on this, and it's not good. I'm going to go ahead and try to add a bit of break line, okay, so as to make it more realistic. All right, now it look nice. Okay, after doing that, we are now this cross to remote time. You know the remote time, so I'm going to go ahead and also acquire the jQuery CDN. Because we're going to be working with AJAX, we need to use the jQuery. So I'm going to go ahead and type jQuery CDN like this one, and it will give us the CDN for jQuery. And I'm going to copy the jQuery CDN from here. I'm going to choose this 3.6.1. At the time of making this video, this is the current version that is available on the market. So I'm going to click on minified. I'm going to copy this bunch of code, and I'm going to go back to my file up here in the head tag, of course, and I'm going to press enter. I'm going to paste our CDN for the jQuery. You can download the jQuery and you have it in your project offline, but I like to make things simple so as to be able to speed up the process. Okay, I hope you get what I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to remove this space here because we are done with the component, so we're going to make our component work. Okay, first things first, and after all these divs, I'm going to open the script tag, and I bet you know what the script tag do. And for this case, we need to initialize our document. Of course, I'm going to say document .lady. Okay, and inside in here we're going to input our function. So I'm going to go ahead and say function. This will be an anonymous function, and inside the function, this is where the remote time is starting now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and initialize the ID for the loader, because it was having the loader as the ID here. Now it's having the ID of a loader, so as to get rid of the loader before we do anything, because we need to call the loader for the specific time. By this time, we don't need the loader and the error message. We need to get rid of them from our workspace. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, loader, I'm going to use the hide method. Okay, for this case, when I save and refresh, I see that the loader is no longer here. As we be loading the document, the loader will be out, or it will be not displaying. I'm going to do the same for the error, and for the error, I have the class as error, and I'm going to call this hide method. So whenever I refresh, you can see that there is no sort of things as a loader or that message for alert. Okay, so after doing that, we're going to go ahead and try to try to create a listener to the login button. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, the button was having the ID as a login, and I'm going to input the listener. To do that, I'm going to say like, okay, button on click, it will implement something in here. So what it will implement will be another function, and inside this function there will be the parameters that we're going to set. I'm going to say, okay, let's email will be to the email as an ID, like this one, and I'm going to get the value that is in there by using this method. Okay, I'm going to repeat this for the password. I'm going to speed this up. Okay, I'm going to say password, and it will be for the password. Okay, make sure you set this ID in the appropriate way, because the data that we're going to get in here, they are going to be useful in one way or another. So there is one way to check if it is catching the data. I'm going to alert the email as long as we'll be clicking on the button. Whenever I click, so let me refresh. Whenever I click, you can see that it is empty. But when I start to write the email, you can see that it was able to display the email, and I can test for the password to make sure that our code is lining up to this level. So I'm going to output the password like this one. You can see that it is empty, and something is wrong. I'm going to refresh. I see that it was able to display the password. Okay, now we can reach there. This is the part of debugging, and I include this for no reason, but you can go ahead and debug to see whenever you are going, so as to avoid making errors in the future, as long as you don't know if your code are running or not. So for that case, we also need to check if the fields are not empty. So to do that, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to trim the spaces first, and I'm going to say, okay, for the email, and after that I'm going to check for the length after trimming if it is greater than 0, and also if we go ahead and trim if the parse if we go to put 0, that's why it was not happy at all. I'm going to put the password as to will be trimming the white spaces, and I'm going to check the length, and as to will be greater than 0 2. If those two conditions are met, that's where we're going to call our AJAX. So to do that, I'm going to say, okay, AJAX, where are you, guy? I'm going to call it like this one, AJAX, and by calling the AJAX, I'm going to do like this one, and inside this AJAX, this is now where we're going to set our URL first, because we need to specify the file that will be targeted, as long as we'll be meeting with this password policy and the email policy. And for the URL, I'm going to make a new file that is called the process.php. okay, and after that we need also to include the method that will be used, and for this case it will be a post method. Okay, and after the post method, we also need to specify the data that will be sent to the server, and the data that will be sent to the server, there will be email and password that we were previously seeing. So for the data, it will be I'm going to say email, it will be email, and also the password, it will be equal to the password. Okay, these are the data that are going to be sent to the server. So after doing that, I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to say that I don't want this to be cached in the browser. So I'm going to say, okay, cache, it will be to false. Okay, and after that, we're going to implement what we call before send. And what the before send function will do, it will help us to load our order, as long as the data is being sent to the server, and after they are complete, we have also to implement what we call complete. Okay, so to do that, it's no big deal. I'm going to say before send, and it will be like this one. I'm going to implement this function, and what this function will do, inside this function, this is where we are going to toggle the loader class. So I'm going to say, okay, loader, come here, and you need to be shown as long as we'll be sending data to the server, and I'm going to say show. Okay, and after that, you can go ahead and continue with the complete too. So I'm going to go ahead and put comma in here, and I'm going to say, okay, complete. After complete, I'm going to implement another function, and in this function, this is where I'm going to say, okay, loader, after now this page is complete, there is no job for you, you can go ahead and rest again. So I'm going to say loader, go back again. Okay, And after implementing this, we need also to implement the success. As long as we'll be getting the data from the server, we need this success function. It will be a callback function that will tell us what's going on, and it will return this data. And after this, we can go ahead and do something with the data that is now returned. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do like this one. And inside here, we'll check if it will bring some data in here. And after it bring the data, we're going to say, okay, if you get data in your parameters, I'm going to initialize the whole body with the new files or the new data that will be returned from the server. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, the body itself as a component, it will load. For example, let me say that the landing page is called, for example, let me call it admin. So, and I will make that file so as to be able to reach it. So I'm going to say admin.php. And for that case, it will have to hide the current. After hiding the current, and it will also need to fade in. It will have the effect to fade in. So fade in, and I'm going to make a transition of 1000. Okay, or you can add any value that you want according to the speed that you need to see when your stuffs are doing that. Okay, and if this doesn't work, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to put some else statement, and after putting the else statement, I'm going to show the error. As long as we don't get any data from the server, I'm going to display the error. So to display the error, I'm going to do like this one, and I'm going to say, okay, with this capture, I'm going to say, okay, error, you are now going to be shown. All right, so that's it now for that. And as we made an if here, if is now ended in here, we can make an else to complete this condition, and I can return the false. So as long as the condition will not be met. Okay, now we are ready to go to make this process file and to make this admin.php file. They are equivalent to what I did previously, so as to show you the demo, but I'm going to remake those files because we are the ones we are going to do it together, so as to be able to know what we are doing in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to call this process.php, and this process.php will contain the PHP file. That's why I'm going to open PHP and close it. And there is the way that I used to get data from the database. So I'm going to give you a bit of introduction on how I do that. I have this app, and inside the app I have this configuration file, and it contains all the host, the username, the password, and the database name. And there is this app upload, and there will be for the host, and there will be for the site name. This is the configuration file that is also called into this database class that I created and connected by using this. And there will be some classes from here, like get low. When I want to get one low, I use this specific function from this class. So whenever you see me doing that, you know what I'm trying to do. So for that, for these files to be accessed, there is another file that is called Bootstrap, and it is the flash that wrote the configuration and it wrote all the libraries. So to access all those, I'm going to load this Bootstrap class and to reload this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on my process.php file, and the first thing that I'm going to do is to require once, and I'm going to say okay, go in the app and load the bootstrap.php file, and I forgot the T, bootstrap.php, and I'm going to put the comma. And after we load this, we need also to start the session. Okay, because session start. Okay, I need to start the session too, and after starting the session, you're going to require this file. Okay, and after requiring this file, we're going to check the data that are going to be sent from the post. So to do that, I'm going to say okay, if is set to, and I'm going to use the variable as a post, and I'm going to say use email, because we are using email for this time. And after checking the email, we can also check for the password, because we don't want to catch one value only. Set to post, and I'm going to check for the password like this one. Okay, for this case, I'm going to go ahead and implement some stuff. The way I like to do this, I like to keep the values in their own selves. So that's why I'm going to say email as a value. I'm going to extract the email from the post, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to include, I'm going to remove these brackets. I don't need them by this time. I'm going to put a comma. Do the same for the password, and I'm going to say password, and I'm going to say it will be password. Okay, for this case, they will be coming as plain text. That's why I'm going to try to echo this, and I'm going to echo the email to check, and I'm going to echo the password so as to be able to check if I'm getting the values. So I'm going to go back to my form, refresh. After refreshing, I'm going to open the developer tools, the Chrome developer tools. I'm going to go on network. You can see that there is nothing in here. I'm going to try to say, okay, I'm going to put my email, and I'm going to put my password as, let me say, Hano Media. And when I try to log in, it will call this process.php. And once I click in here, you can see that I'm having my email in here, and I'm having the password. So for this case, we know that our file are being sent. You can see that the loader is continuing to load, and we are going to fix that in a bit. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. I'm going to see why the loader is still there while this the process is complete. So where's our file? It is called the file, and you can see on the complete loader, I didn't hide this. Okay, sorry for that guys. I hope you will fix it. Okay, and for that case, we can now ensure that we are now sure that our data are getting in our file that we need to big them to be. So as I told you, my password is stored as a hashed SHA-256 by using the SHA-256. So for that case, I will need to take this password too, and I will say that password, it will be equal to, I'm going to try to hash it, okay, and so as to be able to compare it with the one from the database. So I'm going to put in the hash that I'm going to use, and it is like this one. And also I'm going to input the previous value towards the password. Okay, for that case, for example, let me try to echo the password again, and I'm going to say password, it will be hashed. So for that case, we'll be able to know that our password is now hashed. So when I go and click on login again and send this, you can see that it was now hashed. Okay, it is hashed. So as whenever we try to compare it with the one from the database, we will get the exact value that we need. Okay, so for that case, I'm going to go ahead and clean this and close the developer tools and refresh this. Okay, after doing that, we can go ahead and try to, let me remove this. We're going to make the query, and the query will be like this one. As I told you, the way I get the data from my database, I showed you my class. I'm going to say, okay, if user will be equal to db, this is the object that I made that helped me to get data from database, and I'm going to call the get row class. I mean get row method. After calling this, I'm going to say select how did I like to select? Okay, and I'm going to say select star from table that is called users. Okay, and I'm going to put the where email is equal to, I'm going to put the placeholder, and password equal to placeholder again. And after, oh man, what did I do? And after doing this, I can go ahead and do like this one. I'm going to input some of the parameters in here. So I'm going to say like, okay, I'm going to input some email, and after that I'm going to input the password. Okay, it will try to bring back the value or the value that you can be able to match these conditions that we input in this query. So whenever we input the appropriate password and to get the value, it will be stored as an associative array, and the associative array, it will be stored in this user object. So I'm going to go ahead and try to var dump the user to see if it will bring us some stuffs. For example, when you try to put in some of the appropriate password, I'm going to go ahead and var dump the user, and I'm going to do like this one. Okay, so for this test, I'm going to use the appropriate username and the password. So I'm going to say I'm going to put this as my username or my email. So I'm going to put in my appropriate password and press on login, and you can see there's nothing happened, but behind the scenes it is happening. So whenever I click on login, you can see that this request was sent. When I click on here, you can see that it was able to return this associative array, and for that case we are now ensuring that our data are being sent. And whenever I insert, for example, let me put 2 and I click on login, you can see that it will also send the process again. You can see that it will let me say it was not able to reach there. You can see that it is returning a boolean as a false. So for that case, whenever the password is not the appropriate password, it will give you a boolean as a false, and the false values yield nothing on our project. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, and for this case we are now sure that we were able to get to the appropriate user. Okay, and for that I'm going to make the comparison by using this user, and to do that I'm going to say okay, if now the user, and I'm going to insert some conditions in here. I'm going to say okay, data, I'm going to call this data equal to user, because it will be the appropriate user. And for that case, I can also start the session. I can say okay, session, and I'm going to set the session variables or the values email. It will be equal to data email, because it will be the one that will be pointing to. Okay, so for that case we'll be using we can use that session data anytime we need to use them. For example, I'm going to go ahead and echo the session so as to be able to, I'm going to echo this value. Okay, I'm going to echo this in here. Okay, and I put the semicolon again. All right, so far so good. Now after we do this, we can go ahead and work on the other file that we need to be launched to whenever our username and password are true. Okay, so I call that file as an admin. So admin, here it is. Where is the admin? I'm going to minimize this admin file. I didn't do that. I'm going to create it. It will be admin.php, and I'm going to put in some of the Emmet stuff. So I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to say okay, admin, because it will be the landing page after logging in, and I'm going to try to include the Bootstrap CDN too, and you already have that in our file.html. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this. It will be this. Okay, I think it's this, and click on here. I'm going to go to the admin, and in here I'm going to paste it here. Okay, after doing that, we can go ahead and include some of the codes, the codes that are simple, so as to make this as a representation. I'm going to make a div, and I'm going to call to give it a class of container. Yeah, equal to container. And after doing that, I can go ahead and insert some of the divs, so as to say like welcome. So I'm going to make a div, and I'm going to give it class of text center, and I'm going to put text center like this one, and inside this class, and I can give it a bit of margin like this one, and inside this class, this is where I can say okay, I'm going to say hello, welcome like this one. Okay, so I can go ahead and test this. I'm going to call admin.php so that it was able to tell us the hello welcome. And you can also include a logout button like the one that we're having. And I'm going to say, okay, outside this, I'm going to call the A, and inside the anchor tag, I'm going to give it this as logout.php. We need to do that file too. I will show you how I implemented it. And I'm going to say logout, and I'm going to give the class of, for example, let me say btn. Let me say btn warning, and that's it. Okay. Whenever you refresh, so that I'm having the logout button. And for the logout file that I made, I'm going to show you the concept that I used. It was trying to start the session, it was trying to destroy the session, and to give you the header. It will now direct you to the login page as it was called index. So for that case, I can say, okay, I'm going to go back to the file. The file.php, and we still have the file as HTML, but we're going to change it as we are going to mess up with the session. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this as file.php. okay, and at the starting of this first file that we were messing up with, I'm going to include some of the PHP codes. I didn't do that because we're still dealing with it, so I'm going to go ahead and try to include some of the PHP codes. So the PHP code that I'm going to include, we add for the sessions, okay, and for the session only. There is no other big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, whenever I am starting this page, I'm going to include some of the PHP codes in here, and I'm going to go ahead and try to start the session start. And after starting the session, I can check if now the user is currently logged in, and I'm going to say, okay, if set to let me say, I'm going to check if there is a current session, because we don't need to go and log in again after we are having a session that is still active. So I'm going to check if there is the active session. For example, I'm going to check for the email. If this session is still in here, there's no need to go again and start a new session. So for this case, it will call this header, and it will go to this specific location, because we'll be saying, okay, if now the user is currently logged in, I'm going to go ahead and go to admin.php, okay, and do like this one. For this case, we will ensure that the session is now started. So, and there is also another scenario whenever someone is going to try to access the admin while he or she is not logged in. So there will be also the other scenario that we need to implement inside the body of the admin file, so as to be able to restrict anyone to come and access this page where he or she is not logged in. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and start the session. Okay, after starting the session, I'm going to go ahead and do like this one. I'm going to say, okay, if, and for this case, I'm going to use not set to, and I'm going to put this variable session, and I'm going to say email, okay, because we'll be checking the email variable. And I'm going to say, okay, if it's not set to that variable, please can you go back. I'm going to say header, I'm going to put you back to this file. It is called file.php, because it will require to log in to continue with the session. And after doing that, we can go ahead and close this PHP, and now we are ready to test. We are ready to test if this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. Okay, it's working, and I'm going to refresh. In this case, I'm going to put in some of the password that is username and password that are not appropriate. Whenever I click on login, consider it was able to tell me that I'm having incorrect credentials. Whenever I refresh and put in some of the appropriate one and put in some appropriate password and login, consider that I was able to go here. And once I click log out and I try to access the admin, it will still be the same. And whenever I am logged in, and let me say I'm logged in, I'm currently logged in. Okay, and I try to access the file again, in particular, it will bring me back to this file because I'm currently logged in. There's no need to log in again. I hope guys you learned something and you get all the things that you asked yourself about how the login system by using AJAX works. Let me know in the comments if you liked this video. You can support this channel on our Patreon page, and if you enjoyed this video, don't leave without pressing the thumbs up button. And if you're coming on the channel for the first time and you liked it, go ahead and press subscribe because many videos are coming. So stay cool and be blessed. Peace.